Oh yeah,
Right.
we are live, boys. Welcome, hello, all out there listening on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube. My name is Matty, joined by my co-hosts JP and Shawnee B.
What's up?
What's up? Welcome back to episode 4 of the podcast,
Yes.
of the Dropouts podcast. Boys, how you feeling?
Where are we right now?
Yeah, what is this place? It's JP
Doesn't look
renovated.
too-
For those,
JP renovated his kitchen.
For those noticing, we're actually not in our usual studio, aka
No, we are
JP's
not.
house.
Yep.
We are live at 180 Strength and Fitness in the back office, actually.
Hot 96.
Hot 96. Unfortunately, due to some scheduling issues, we're actually recording today because we are committed to dropping a podcast every Thursday at 5 a.m. Hence, we are in a new studio.
Yes.
Boys, how we feeling?
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Feeling good. FYI, it is Wednesday. So
Yeah, it
we're
is
cutting it
Wednesday.
close, but we're
kinda close, but
we're bringing it.
We'll get it out. We'll
bringing
get
the
it out
goods.
by tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that'll be good.
But yeah, we just had a session, so that was good.
We're in the little office, as you can see. We've got a little CCTV surveillance camera behind Maddie. So
Make sure the crew's working hard.
that's
That's
right.
it.
We literally just finished the session like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Shawnee, talk to us. What's today's episode about?
All right, so we're at number 4. So again, we keep bringing this up, but I got it wrong last week because I said it was 75% of podcasts don't go on, but it's actually 90%, 95%. So
Wow.
I rechecked it. So we're on our way, boys. But today, what we're talking about, and we've actually talked about this off the podcast for a while now because we thought it was going to be a great topic, but failure and fear. Failure and fear, and
Love that.
you know, some of the things that we've gone through with that and what we think about it. So it's going to be a good one.
Very pertinent topic, I think, because I remember when we were all sitting down talking about this podcast, and we mentioned this, I think, on episode 1, and I don't know what it was. I think we were all just having really good chats at the cafe next door, as we do every morning, and you know, we're like, oh, this is such great convo, and then Shawnee's like, why don't we start a podcast? And I think me and Maddie were like, oh, yeah, like I'd be keen. Oh, bro, podcast would be hectic. And I think Shawnee maybe mentioned it one more time the following week.
Yeah.
And we're like, you know, again, hectic. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, no, never. Not on my fucking life would I ever put myself out there like that. And then Shawnee sets up a group chat on Instagram. Boys, I've bought the kit.
That's it. Shawnee's very action orientated. That's why we love you, bro, because you get shit done. And here we are, fast forward 4 weeks later, close to a month later,
Yeah.
and we're 4 episodes in. So please keep tuning in.
Yeah. What made you feel fearful? Like you're saying, like, oh, not in my life, and never do it. So what was that feeling?
I think a few things came into my head. I think for one, I was like, who the fuck am I to do a podcast?
Yeah,
for one, I was like, you know, in my head, you see all these people doing podcasts and, you know, it's very much people in, you know, positions of importance, or they've like achieved some level of success, or, you know, they've earned the right to, you know, be on the podcast, to have their voice heard.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think of it as, you know, a couple of blokes just kind of sharing, you know, they're kind of couple of dropouts sharing their journey and what's happening with them. Not necessarily that we have to sit here and, as I said on Ep1, we don't have to be Bill Gates or anything. But yeah, that's what I was fearful of, and obviously I like the judgment of other people. And, but probably the people
fair
close.
judgment,
Yeah.
100%. And it was so good, but I think it was when we did our first time together. It wasn't the first episode, obviously, but we're just having a practice run. And then we did it, and then I don't know how you felt, Maddie, about it, but getting into it, but you were just so pumped when we finished it. You were so pumped. You were like, let's do it again. Let's do it again. I was like, oh, yeah, man. Like,
he loved that.
I was ready
Yeah.
to put my head through. I think I specially said I'm ready to put my head through the jip rock
Yeah,
right
you were
now. Like
so
I was
freaking
I
excited.
felt like a kid in it. Like I was literally hopping around like a Jack Russell.
There's some comedic, I guess, element to that story, but it's true because I think it goes to prove that whatever you're fearful of, or, you know, at least some things that you can be fearful of, you know, you're actually not warranted to have those fears because you end up disproving them anyway. You know,
Yeah,
you end
the
up
evidence.
stepping outside of your comfort zone, and, you know, maybe to the dismay of others, you thought that, you know, they're going to judge you or that they're going to say certain things about you, but you've actually been quite well received on the podcast.
What would you say was your number one? Like there's obviously a lot of fears, right? Like there's a fear of like, don't want to put myself out there, but what would you say the number one, like it could have even been in relation to a specific person, like your brother, for example. Like what was it?
What would
for
they
you?
think? Or
You know what? I think
specifically?
there is an element of, like, you know, others around me, less about that, like you just said. I think probably a little bit to do with, you know, my family and my brothers, because, you know, they know me on a personal level. We're always really silly at home, and I think they could be like, who the fuck are you starting a podcast? I'm the youngest of 3 brothers, but again, you know, I confronted that. I had that chat with them, and I said, look, man, we're sitting here having a chat, putting ourselves out there, talking about, I think, issues that, no, not even issues, but just talking about things that
chatting.
chatting and not expecting anything from that. I think there would be more of a fear had I put myself, put the perceived expectations on a pedestal and be like, yeah, we're going to go and get, 1 million views.
Talk about this and
Talk about this, talk about that.
whatever.
But it was like, nah, let's set very achievable expectations. Just say, let's record a podcast once a week. And I think we've done that. And I think...
What was their actual reaction? Because I know you're going to move on to something else. So I wanted to...
no,
what
totally.
was their actual... Because that was your fear, right? So I'm interested to hear, what was the fear, and then what did it actually... Because obviously,
Eventuate to.
because we were all sitting there with whatever fears we had and thinking, okay, that fear that I'm fearful of, what is that person's or that group of people or that reaction like?
Going to be?
What's it
What's
going?
the story you're
was
telling
it?
yourself?
What was
Well,
it?
I tell you, for example, if I was talking about my two brothers, one of them is in the army, so he's too busy doing fucking drills and training to even really listen or care. And then my other brother is busy running a very successful construction company. So, if some shorts come up on his Instagram, hey, Robbie, if you're watching this, then I'm sure he'll have a laugh and have a read over it. But again, people don't care half as much as you think they are. And
Bro,
that
that's
goes
100%.
across to, your
bad.
training,
Yeah.
podcast, whatever it is. Stop exalting yourself over things. Like, don't
what is it?
shit.
I literally,
You
I
go
had a quote ready for this.
Yeah.
It was literally the only thing that I prepared.
Yeah.
Preach, my brother.
We overestimate the degree of which people observe our actions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
We overestimate. Like even you just said, like you literally. Robbie's like, as long as you're fucking getting to out right on time, I don't give a shit.
But I think it was like, if you knew how much people actually cared about what you did, you would probably go do more stuff or something like that.
Yes,
Something
that's
along the
the
way.
OG
Like,
one. That's
no
the
one
OG
cares. People care about themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And like if you're putting out actions towards doing things, like as long as you know that you're doing the right thing, you know that you're progressing, then.
So I just realised that we're
Holding the podcast.
holding the mics.
Yeah, for
So you
those
want
of
that
you
day?
looking at the video,
I
actually
got rid
holding
of
the
my
mic.
stand.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, like the whole fear around the podcast was, and I've said this before, like I didn't have much fear about doing it because I had failed, going sort of linking with failure, failed on doing videos and trying to do these sorts of things for a long period of time. Like I'm talking like 6 to 7 years. Where, as I said before in a previous podcast, I would go into the office like this for an hour sometimes. Probably the longest once was 2 hours, and I'd record, video camera, everything set up, and I would not post it, would not put it out there because of the perception, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what if people don't think, I'm a perfectionist, so it doesn't look good. What's the when you have imposter syndrome, when you think you don't know enough, right? You study more, you go to do it, but then you don't do it.
And that's a massive. That imposter syndrome is really,
Yeah.
really big, and that's why they say like, if you take it away from like creating and you more think about rather like documenting, you feel less like an imposter because even like for us, we're just like. The whole tone of this podcast is not like, we've achieved something and we're sharing our knowledge, but rather we're just talking about our journey on some particular topics, and we haven't figured it out. And that makes us maybe feel more comfortable with the fact that we're even sharing.
And we hope that you can like probably relate that to, relate to us a little bit more. I know that when I'm watching podcasts with, people with PhDs and JP slapping on his shake.
Shout out to Elevate. Nice
Elevate,
shake.
yeah.
Shout out to Elevate. But yeah, no, definitely we hope you can appreciate or at least take some sort of, whether it's a laugh or a little bit of education, whatever that you get from this podcast, we hope that it's of some value to you. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit with fear and failure is, obviously they're inextricably linked. We can be scared to fail.
Yeah.
We can have that
100%.
fear for failure. But I would actually argue that, my greatest successes have come as a result of my failure in business, in sporting, and, you're never actually going to grow. You hear that a lot. You're never going to grow unless you fail. And I think the more that we embrace failure rather than fear the failure, I think the greater our outcome will be. And I've had that in business. I like to, share a little bit of a story about failure. What I didn't think would be a failure, but later in the evening, turned out to be a failure when I was running the cafe. So for those of you that don't know, I opened a cafe, worked in hospitality for many years, and then achieved my dream of opening a coffee shop in Maryland's, right next to an F45 gym. Had an amazing 2.5 years. Sold that cafe at the end of last year. I'll start from when I first opened. When I first opened, I was shitting myself. The first day ever, we opened on Wednesday, the 11th of November, 2020. And I remember the night before, on Tuesday night, I was an emotional mess. I was just so hyped up, but also nervous. Also, have that element of fear. And then I went in, and then that first 2 weeks was just a grind. It was just up at the crack of dawn, staying till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon back there to make protein shakes in the evening. I was just grinding, man, day after day after day to get this business off the ground. And I think there was a little bit of naivety on my side because I didn't I knew that there was going to be a lot of hard work involved in that process, but I think it was definitely a slap in the face, getting those first few months under my belt. COVID came along and, business was quite slow. Again, very fearful. I was thinking, what am I doing, man? I've just opened up a business in the middle of a pandemic. People weren't walking around as much. There was less traffic out on the road. Our turnover went down. And I was thinking, okay, rattling my brain, what can I do? What can I do to get myself out of this hole that we're in? Okay, let's start to do pop-up evenings because, there was lots of different coffee shops.
Yeah.
So we started to explore down different avenues of bringing in new customers and bringing in new business. And ultimately, I love burgers. I fucking love burgers.
Who doesn't love a good burger?
Who doesn't love a good burger?
No, but I saw your videos on the Brother Bear page, bro. You were fucking
Mate,
whipping up
smashing
hectic burgers. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. And yeah, we ended up doing a burger night pop-up. So I think it was the Monday, created on Canva, burger pop-up night, come down from 5:30 p.m. We'll be grilling burgers, hyped it up, make these cool posts. And, we got a little bit of traction on Instagram, a couple of 100 likes. And I was thinking, yeah, man, hopefully we get, 30 or 40 people down there, maybe 50. Me and my brother and my cousin, who wasn't actually even working at the coffee shop at the time, but I just said, look, man, I feel like we might need an extra hand.
Yeah,
Come
just
down,
in case.
just in case. Anyway, hyped it up. 5:30 came along. If you've ever been to my little shop, it was a 4 meter by 4 meter hole in the wall. So very tight space. Wasn't even a full kitchen. We had like a Bunnings exhaust,
that's mad.
rather than a commercial exhaust.
No, there were no tables or anything.
There was some tables out on the road, so like little
More takeaway.
more takeaway.
More of a
Yeah,
takeaway.
yeah.
You
type
could
of
sit
setup.
down, and people definitely came and sat down, but it definitely wasn't a dine-in venue. All
right.
food was served in sort of takeaway containers, takeaway cutlery, things of that nature. That night came along. I think I prepared for about 60, maybe 70 or 80 burgers. Had them all done in patties, cut all the burger buns in half, done as much prep as I thought that we would need for that night.
Yeah.
Turns out, fucking so many people
How many
rocked
people
up.
came down?
Honest, I'm not over exaggerating. People that were there, if you came to that night, please leave a comment on this and just let
Drop
me
it
know
down.
what your experience was that night, because it must have been 150 people at
Wow,
least. At
that's
least.
Oh my god, bro! So what
That's
did you
double,
do?
man. Double what you thought.
What'd
Double
you
what we
do,
did.
bro?
Okay. So what
So you
happened was-
literally prepared for half, pretty
Half,
much.
Yeah, you doubled it.
Not only the amount of burgers that we prepared for, but also, the amount that I prepared. Had I known that we were going to be that, mate, we were making sauce in the middle of service for the burger sauce. We were cutting up lettuce and tomatoes in the middle of service. So on that evening
mad.
as well, we
That's
done
hectic.
2 burgers. We done an OG burger, an OG smash burger. So just pickles, onions, cheese. Then there
Nice.
was a I think we called it the California Classic or something. So like an In-N-Out style burger, lettuce, tomato, like onions on top. Really great burgers.
Hey, making me hungry.
Mate, we had 10 people come in, smashed out those first 10 burgers. I was like, hectic. We're going to have an awesome night.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on the inside of this little setup, we had like a little fold-out Bunnings trestle tables. It was not a full kitchen setup.
Yeah.
It was just to get us through that night. After the first 10 came, around 6 o'clock came, we also had chicken wings, onion rings, and loaded fries.
On the menu.
On the menu.
So you had all. Oh my god!
So we had 2
bro.
burgers, 3 sides, all your drinks, whatever it is.
and like
mate,
what 3 staff?
and like 3 staff, people taking orders. Then I remember at 6 o'clock, people ordered burgers, fries combo. So we put the chips in the fryer, and these fryers are not like your big commercial fryers with lots
They
of
probably
room.
take like
Tiny, eh?
6 minutes, 7
Yeah.
minutes
Yeah,
to get it
they take a
fry
long
done.
the time.
Not only do they take a
Yeah.
long time, but because they're only like 5 liter fryers, the fries themselves cool down the oil temperature as they proceed.
no!
So before I knew it, mate, this thing just fucking bricked up, and I'm sitting there trying to get these fries out.
people like my chips are raw.
City potato.
Fast forward about half an hour.
Someone call
literally-
Macca's. Someone call Macca's to supplement the fries.
We had literally, I kid you not, about 30 dockets. On these dockets was 2 or 3 burgers per thing. I'm trying to get the fries in.
Fuck, you would have been sweaty.
Mate, I was
Bro,
sweating.
fucking
People are looking
maintain
at the shop.
composure.
Oh,
Jesus.
mate, there was no composure. By the end of it, it was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, oh, you get it,
Were
whatever
people
you
alright?
get.
They were
Mate,
happy and shit.
Listen,
yeah.
people...
It was your opening, obviously. Like,
People
surely they would have
were
been.
just happy, number one, because we had a really tight relationship with our customers. They were happy just to see us busy, number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
But
true.
also in saying that, like they could see the whole show going on, and you can't hide mess in a 4
Yeah,
meter by 4
yeah.
meter. So they're just looking through the roller door, and I'm like, I'm sorry,
You
I'm
can't
doing
hide
my
your
best
face.
here.
Yeah.
I could not
So,
hide it.
Yeah.
so that went from like a fear of not having anyone show up to like almost
To a
like,
complete failure.
Yeah,
To
wow.
a failure. Man,
couldn't have thought a more permanent.
It's such a
pertinent
funny
story.
thing though, like you say, it's such a failure, but you had so many people come, like
Yeah.
so
it's
many
such
people
a-
turned
yeah.
up. Man, it was such a
Funny
contrast of
dynamic.
that. People were looking in, having a laugh. I ended up giving out burgers. We clocked in some money. A few people probably didn't get their burgers that night. I'm sorry if you were one of those.
They would've-
They're still waiting
Yeah.
for the refund to this day. They're listening in.
Wait, if you didn't get your burger, comment down
Yeah,
below.
come back for a refund.
And
Comment
it was
down
in the
below.
middle of July, so it was absolutely freezing that night.
Yeah,
These
true.
people were like, Maddie, we don't even want the burger. Just
Yeah,
like, we want to
take
get
our
back
money.
to our car.
But they would have wanted to
You got
support
any
you through COVID
blankets?
anyway.
They did.
Wouldn't they? Like
And
that,
shout out-
that's yeah.
That's right. Shout out to
Yeah.
my cousin. He actually took control because I was panicking a little bit. I was trying to get these burgers together. He's like, Maddie, get the fuck out of the way.
Maddie's
Put
hyperventilating
these
in the
burgers together,
corner.
man. So he helped me out. And man, I got into my car that night. We went into the car park. Whenever we did these pop-up nights, we'd go into the car park and hang out later with our customers, have a beer, whatever it was. And I just remember sitting in my car and I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? Like I was full of anxiety, full of fear because I just thought, man, my business is gone. Like these people didn't get their burgers. And I exalted this problem more than what it should. Don't get me wrong, it was a big problem, but at the end of the day, people came back the next day.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, we went on to do, 5 or 6 more burger nights and pop-up
And you
nights.
did like Kanafa pop up,
Kanafa pop-up, and taco night and all this
Yeah,
type
man.
of stuff, and they were the biggest success ever. And that's my point. Had I not failed miserably,
Yeah.
I would not have gone on to then see success to some degree
Yeah.
later on. So
Yeah, 100%.
Are those
That's
type
awesome.
of pop ups just out of those pop up nights? Are they like better commercially than just running the cafe regular day to day? Do they make more money
I think
in hospo?
for us, they
for the
did.
time that you do it for, right? Like,
Correct.
How long did you do it for? How long? Were you open?
The first one was in July. Or like how long did
How
you?
long did you actually have it open for? Like,
Oh, okay.
I mean, so for what on the day? How long?
So what we did was after we again all learning, discovering, working out best systems and processes. We just said, yeah, come down, had 10 menu items, and everyone just came up, and that completely messed us up. So what we did in the future was like, okay, it's still COVID. What we're gonna do is we'll have 3 separate pickup times, one at 6 o'clock, one at 6:30, one at 7 o'clock. And I was able to sell more burgers, get them out successfully because I had
People like
list-
structure.
Oh, you actually said a pickup time.
Yeah, I said a pickup
That's
time.
good.
fucking genius.
Mate, it was
that's
so
good.
good because
Where'd you get that idea from? That's such a great idea.
well, it was just it came naturally because of the restrictions imposed on us during COVID.
Oh.
I was just thinking, what's the
Couldn't
best
have
way?
too many people,
Oh,
I
that's
guess.
so smart though. It's like restaurant seating times so that they can prepare
Yeah,
specifically
yeah.
for a seating time. Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
And then it's
Interesting.
better for you when you're making the food.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can tell who's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll touch base on another story a bit later in the podcast about sort of another failure, almost fear, again relating to food. This time not in my cafe, but rather we were. I'll get to it in a sec, but we were catering for a birthday party, making wood fire pizza, and I've never made wood fire pizza before. So I'll touch on that in a
Feel
bit.
the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah,
Shorty,
man.
what's
Don't
going on?
we?
Fear and failure, mate. Talk to us.
Yeah, I'll jump across to fear. And I think and this is from my perspective, but also from what I've learned as well. But fear is just a story that we tell ourselves before the actual activity happens, right? So, for example, with our podcast, thinking about what's going to happen, we could think about the worst possible thing, like no one's going to listen to it, we're not going to be able to sound good, the sound equipment's going to be all stuffed up. We can make all these stories up and we lean into that fear. But the thing is, it's not actually real. Right, so there's 2 things I'll talk about, like fear where it's not actually real, as I just said, but also fear where you have the evidence of the fear being real. So I'll just tell you a quick story about the first time I said the F word and the fear that came from that and the story that I made up from that. So I was in year 5, it was in primary school, and me and my mate wanted to play a footy game against 2 older boys. I think they were in year 6. So I've never heard my mother say the F word, hardly ever swear. And then my father, whenever we used to watch footy, he used to say fudge, right? So, fudge, So I would look at my dad, I'd be like, I was at primary school, even at that time, people were swearing. I was like, Dad, I know what you're talking about, but from my
I know
understanding...
what you're doing,
yeah,
Dad.
I know what you're doing. Just say it. But I knew in my household, we didn't
Yeah.
swear, right?
Yeah,
We didn't curse. So anyway, we're playing this footy game. There was a fence line. And I got the ball. I was running across the fence line, and one of the boys pushed me into the fence. And this was the first time that I at least said it out loud, like with vigor, right? I pushed me into it, and I grabbed onto the fence, dropped the ball, and I was like, fuck. loud, and then my world froze. At that point, what I thought was going to happen was this. The kid heard me. The kid was going to tell the teacher. The teacher was going to go to the office. The teacher was going to tell the principal. The principal was going to call my dad. My dad would have to leave work, come to the school. I was going to get expelled. I was going to get suspended.
No.
I was going to get home, and my dad was going to give me the biggest hiding of my life.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Honestly, in that moment. So that was my fear. And I was scared like the whole day. For the rest of the day, it was lunchtime. The rest of the day, I was shit scared. So obviously I was walking home. Me and my sister used to walk home, and I was just like kicking rocks, like, oh my gosh, like this is what's going to happen. You know, they've probably called my dad already. He didn't come to the school, but he probably couldn't come to the school. And, you know, I was just making up this story. Got home, ended up seeing my dad later that night, you know, and I had my hands behind my bum, right? I was like,
What, so he didn't get smacked?
I
Or
was
like,
waiting. I was like,
Oh, okay.
waiting. I was like, oh man, like I'm probably gonna get a massive hiding. And I was like,
Here it
oh, how
comes.
was school? And I was like, yeah, good. I was like, oh, did you get any calls? He's like, no, like no. And then anyway, nothing happened. So anyway, nothing happened, right? So my dad didn't get called. The principal didn't get told. The teacher didn't get told. The kid probably didn't hear me. But I had this this fear of what was going to happen based on the story that I just told
Yeah.
myself, right? So that's where I say, like, fear in itself, we can make up these stories, but where it's not actually real, right? So that was one. But then the other side of it is, okay, so what if that actually did happen?
Yeah.
What if
happens
that was
you
the
got
case that
bashed?
did happen? Like, in hindsight, I knew that wouldn't happen. Even if they did tell the principal, my dad would have just sat me down and had a chat to me. It would have been all fine. And that goes back to how we actually see fear itself. We can look at negative things that are going to happen and lean into that, or we can look at it at a different perspective and look at what's actually going to happen in a positive way. Because if I thought this, for example, you know, the teacher's going to tell the principal's going to tell my dad, and my dad comes in and he just sits me down and he just says to me, hey, look, son, you know, we don't swear, but look, I understand that happened and that's okay, no worries. If I felt that, maybe the fear wouldn't have been there as much. So I think that we can look at it at two sides. And let's say again, as I was saying, if it actually did happen the way that I thought, the next time that I swore, the fear would be justifiable because it actually happened.
Okay.
So I think you can
That's
look at
like
it.
that's how we learn. That's like
how we learn.
Pavlov's theory. You know, the dog.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
like when a bell is rung and the dog's given a
Dogs,
treat. You know,
yes.
Pavlov's. You know.
Yeah. So that's what I think about fear, and that was sort of just a story where I built up this massive story about what was going to happen, and it actually didn't happen.
You
So
convoluted
looking
this
at
problem in your head for no
Yeah.
reason.
yeah, 100%. And I think that's what people do, like the podcast, for example. Okay, what's going to happen, or whatever you're going to do with regards to working towards goals or facing up to certain things. And this is something that I did last year actually that I felt was really good to actually try different things or lean into different things. I had a whiteboard, so a vertical whiteboard. And I had it at the front of my door, and I wrote on it "fuck it" in big letters, "fuck it." And what that was for me was, it was whenever I wanted to do something, okay, that I felt fearful about, but I knew that was resourceful for me, that was going to help me move forward in whatever way. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd say "fuck it" and just do it. So feel the fear and do it anyway.
Wait, you said fuck it.
Fuck it. Yeah.
Weren't you scared of your dad?
yeah. So yeah. So
He's
that.
like, fuck him.
Yeah, but yeah. Bash him, no. Yeah, so that was something that I did, and I think you can have certain things like that to help you move through fear. Whatever it is for you, that was just it for me, like saying fuck it and just do it anyway.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And
Well
that's
done,
what,
good, bro.
So, and that's how I did the half Ironman, the trail runs, all that sort of stuff like that. I'll just go fuck it and just go do it.
And yeah, and I think that's a really good like learned attitude, right? And I think like taking it back to what you're talking about, where you know there's a lot of these kind of fears that don't eventuate. Obviously, there's those that do, right? And that's how we learn, that's how we grow, and that's how we. I mean, there's a reason why fear exists, right?
Yeah.
It's to protect us,
Correct.
right?
Well, yeah.
But I mean, like
To
you
an
said,
extent.
To an extent.
to an extent, right? And there's a what's his name? Oh, by the way, if you can hear hard styles in the background, it's because there's a gym session going on. Can you hear that? Yeah, a little bit,
That's all right.
tiny
Slightly.
bit. I think it's a Mark Twain quote where he says, "I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which have never happened."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you just think to yourself like, how many of these worries, how many of these fears, how many of these concerns that
Actually prosper.
are invalid. But I just wonder, like, you know, and obviously, you know, you spoke about some examples. I just wonder what separates those people that can say fuck it. Like, because that's what this is about, right? It's like, how do these people that do say fuck it go on to achieve such amazing things? Like, there are people out there who, literally go, I'm going to give it a go. I don't care how I look. I don't care what it does to me.
Yeah.
I'll risk it all. I'll risk my money. I'm not just talking about public opinion here. We're talking about money. We're talking about a lot of things. Like, that's the thing, is that what is that recipe for those people? Is it simply just like they've literally managed to change their mindset, or is it something that's happened to them? Like,
Do you know
it's
what?
just fascinating.
I can share a little bit of insight on this, because I think it's the latter. I think it's what you said. I think it's events that have happened to them. They may have failed in something, or they may have lost something, or they may have been through trauma that once they've gone through that, they thought that event or the loss of that thing would kill them. Once they've experienced they experience that, once they undergo that and they feel all those emotions and they go through all those feelings, and then they come out on the other side of it, all of a sudden everything is so insignificant compared to that event.
But once you've been to the bottom of the barrel, there's nowhere else to go.
And that's
right?
actually that. And I haven't even finished the book. You've probably read the whole thing. David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. And that's what's crazy, is that he would go home and like he'd look at his dad wrong or something. They'd come back from the ice rink that their family owned, and his dad would literally come home and like belt him. Would like lay hands on his mother. And David Goggins' whole thing is like, you can't hurt me.
Yeah.
You can't hurt me because what I've been through.
What you've been through, yeah.
You cannot hurt me. Like, nothing can hurt me. If I can get through that, then I can get through anything.
Yeah.
So I think you're right.
But I also think they're linked, is like with regards to failure in itself. Like, if somebody fails, some people don't learn the failure. Like, they just move past and they actually learn the lessons that they need to learn to actually progress to the next level.
Correct.
Right? So those people that actually do have more of an optimistic mindset, and also they have that resilience as well to go, okay, well, I have failed. Well, why did I fail? Well, what happened? So that when it comes around again, or when it potentially comes around again, I know what to do.
Yeah.
I know how to progress through that. And then the fear might subside with that, like feeling of confidence.
Totally. You boys probably know, my brother sadly lost his wife last year. Horrible circumstance, and that was really challenging for him. Overcame that, or is still coming to learn to overcome that. But he taught me something that has just stuck with me for the last 4 or 5 months. When he told me, it was, she sadly passed. He's going through his battles and going through the grief and the loss and the experience of not having her by his side. And to him, had you said to him before she passed, that would be his biggest fear. That would be anyone's biggest fear. That would be your biggest fear if you were going to lose your wife, or to lose a spouse, or to someone really close.
And there'd
to
be
you.
an element of like, as a husband, and I think like especially, I think that most men feel this, but I think in particular, like, being an Egyptian, being on an ethnic, with an ethnic background, I think there's that very much that traditional sense of like, my job is to job is the protector.
Yeah.
My job, is the protector of So I think that anyway. Go on, sorry, mate.
No, that's all right, bro. He ended up saying to me a few months ago, we went for dinner, and after she had passed, he was like, he had business was a little bit slower at the start of the year, started to go through some other things, was battling some other things, and he had all these pent up fears and all these pent up worries, but they amounted to nothing compared to the loss of his wife. So he was able to overcome these things, and he goes, my biggest fear after losing my wife was losing my business, and having to tell my boys, yep, we're gonna pack it up, there's no more work for us to go around, things like that. And when he was able to surrender and just say, you know what, I'm not going to die if these things happen. I'm not going. These things aren't going to kill me, because what I thought would kill me has only made me stronger. And he was actually able to persevere past that point and continue to push on. And I think it served as a catalyst for him to actually become a really insanely strong human. And I think some of the strongest people that probably all of us know are the people who have been, down to the absolute bottom of the barrel. Like you just said a little bit earlier, I think the more we learn to embrace those failures, or, embrace those fears and overcome them, granted they're hard at the time, and, we're all human, we have those emotions, but you can come out on the other side of them a lot easier said than done. But definitely. Yeah,
because there's always this, you always have, I think, sorry boys, I just turned down the mics a bit so that the background music wasn't coming on so much. But yeah, like, I think that there's always going to be an element of like, whenever there is a failure, the lessons learned are only relevant so long as that individual feels like they've made some sort of mistake, or they've fucked up in some way. There's always going to be a learning from those experiences, right?
Some people won't. Some people won't. The ego will get in the way, and they'll just blame or.
Exactly right. But I think that like, as long as people can look at those failures and acknowledge, or use those failures as something to drive them, right? Because that's the thing, is that like, for example, obviously we talked about this already on episode 1, but when I, when I got that, even though I was, bludging, not doing much when I was at uni, I got that letter in the mail that said like, hey, like, you're getting kicked out basically for a year or two. You can't come back for 12 months. That felt like a failure, obviously, and it was like I acknowledge completely that was a failure on my part. Yeah. And even though I didn't care about uni at the time, getting that was like, wow, does this mean I actually do fucking care? Or is it because, so for me, the lesson wasn't like, okay, go back and like, in a way kind of get that done. It was like, okay, sulk, do whatever you need to do, sit on the couch, but then get the fuck up and work out what you're going to do and use the lack of that degree to drive you as the chip on your shoulder through your career. And that's, I carried that for the next, and I still do to this day, carry that, because, for me, again, I said this before, I didn't do particularly well. Well, I did really, actually, funnily enough, I have a funny story about failure in school. I'll jump to that in a sec. But, I didn't do particularly well at school and in high school, got to uni, didn't obviously complete my degree. So in my head, I'm like, to the external world, I look like a failure. So I want to fucking prove something to all those people. And, that, I feel like I had a sense of pride when I was younger. Like even when I was in primary school, a funny story, I did really well in primary school, I don't know.
Painting class.
Painting class. Finger painting.
Fuck you. Fuck you both. No. Like, and shout out to my mum, Lillian. I love you.
Hi, Lillian.
She doesn't listen, so she's not going to hear this. Maybe I'll just send her this particular part. She would like read to me all the time. I was first, not only was I firstborn child, I'm her only son. So I'm the favourite, obviously. So she used to read to me a lot, and I was always good at English, and I was good in school, and like I was in the I was in the gifted and talented class in primary.
You're very good at grammar.
This and like, don't get me wrong, this got really bad in high school. So I was in like class 7, class 8, and all that. But in primary school, I was really good. So I didn't have to do any sort of work. All the other kids got used to doing work and doing homework and studying, whereas I was just like, I thought I was hectic, just cruising by on my ability and whatever. Yeah. And that came back to bite me. But anyway, long story short, year 4 came round, and I did really well in year 4 or whatever, and then it would come into speech night, and I thought I was going to get ducks of year 4, and Samil Shah, very intelligent young man.
This is JP's origin story.
Samil Shah got ducks. I got runner up, and mate, I'll never forget. I hung my head. Imagine a kid in year 4. I was so ashamed. Man, that was honestly one of the biggest failures in memory for me.
You know
really?
what?
I remember the emotion that I felt.
Yeah.
That's why. Obviously, it doesn't.
I felt the same. I did a kindergarten talent show.
Oh,
a kindergarten talent show.
And
I've held this.
What did you do?
I'll hold this grudge to my grave to this kid. I don't even remember his name.
No, you remember
his name.
I just remember he was a little blonde kid. He was in the other kindergarten class. I went to St. Michael's in Borkham Hills, and I danced to
dance?
I danced.
Wow.
Do you dance?
I danced to, at the time I did. I danced to a Michael Jackson song. What was it? Don't blame it on the sunshine.
Oh yeah. That Jackson.
Don't blame it on
Jackson
5. Jackson 5.
And
man, I killed this
Blame it on the
dance.
boogie.
Had a full routine. Made my mum practice every morning for like a month.
Cute. That's so good.
That's
so
nice.
good.
Little suit, had a black curly wig, like the afro wig, had sequences. And like,
was blackface.
Get the photo,
man,
you must have a photo. Surely.
I do have a video or photo somewhere.
Oh,
I
get the
danced
photo and
my
post it.
heart out to this song, man, and I
hilarious.
came second to this kid playing the goddamn piano, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Was he white?
He was white. Yeah, so still hold that to my grave. I think I should have still won.
Well,
the talent
actually,
show, but I
it's
felt
like-
like a failure.
Well, if you had one, you maybe wouldn't open the cafe.
Well, that's right.
Who knows?
It might be in showbiz.
The butterfly effect.
The butterfly effect. But I had the same thing. Me and my mate used to do talent queen shows.
Ooh.
Call. Don't worry about him.
Me and my mate,
you? Get to the fucking. Why are you
doing that damn podcast?
Yeah.
No, do you know what? This is actually Uber Eats from my old.
Answer it. Put it on speaker.
Nah, don't worry about him. Go on.
So me and my mate did talent shows as well back at school, and we came second to a pianist as well.
No
Same
way.
thing, bro. He was so good, bro.
He's fucking
He was so
pianist.
good, bro. I was almost gonna give him the first prize straight up.
Talented
He was
kid.
so good. Oh, bro, he's so good. Yeah, I mean, we were better, but he was he was so good. Yeah.
We were better, but it's the piano. He just gets extra style points for playing the piano.
He's got fast fingers.
It is fucking. It's a beautiful thing to watch someone playing like an amazing piano song. It really tugs on the
Yeah,
heartstrings.
but also so young as well.
Yeah.
Like when you see a kid that's so young that has that talent to be able to do that,
bro.
I'm like, well,
Do you
what do I
remember
do
those
with my
kids in
life?
primary school? Like again, I'm just saying this like based on pure fact. The Asian
Yeah.
kids in primary school with the piano.
That's right.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
grade 6 and they're fucking
They're good on the
Yeah.
violin too.
bro.
The
Yeah,
cello.
because their parents
Yeah.
would bash them if they didn't practice.
Wow. Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not taking the piss. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Bro, I would get in trouble. Like, but my parents tried the instrument thing on me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't having it. I felt so
Mate,
guilty.
I
It
was
was
a
my dad
triangle.
bought a guitar.
On the triangle.
I
I
had
was
a
the triangle in the
piano.
corner.
It's so funny.
That was such a reject instrument.
Yeah, I know.
If you, were
It's
the
like-
kid, if you were the untalented kid in kindergarten, they just back here. Just
Yeah,
go,
get
just
on
touch
That was
this
the
thing.
teacher. Sean, where's Sean?
Get Sean in the
Go
fucking
get the
corner.
triangle.
Get him away. Give him a fucking triangle or something. All right.
I was pretty good at it though. Thank you. I
You know,
must
I
say.
can actually play the triangle because at church, like, I was a deacon, or still am, but I don't go and be a deacon much. But I'm actually a gun on the
There you
triangle.
go. Wow.
If we can find one, I'll play it on the
I'll
potty.
share another little story about fear also tied in with failure. Actually, you know what? It wasn't a failure. It was actually a great success. Thank the Lord, because it came very close. So basically, I had bought this wood fire pizza oven. We'd done the burger night, we'd done the taco night at the shop, and I had I think it was our birthday for the shop coming up. And I thought, I want to throw a party in the car park, because we used to do the pop-up nights in the shop and people would sort of just get their food and walk around and hang out in the car park. And I thought, nah, I don't want to cook in the shop. I want to be able to, make some food and have music, have a DJ set up. So we done this awesome.
What a vibe.
Mate, it was such a vibe. It was so
So
much fun.
how big was it? Oh, was this like the 45 car park?
Yeah.
Was this with Brother Bear?
With Brother
Was
Bear. Yeah, so it was quite a large car park. So I had this vision since I opened the shop to have like a huge night with the music and the fun, the DJ, or whatever it was. So I bought this wood fire pizza oven, picked it up, and for 2 weeks prior to having that event, I would just I've never made pizza before, especially in a wood fire oven. So got the dough made, rolled it out, and we just make pizza on the side of the road. And like, shout out to Mary Lann's Meadow. This is like the most illegal activity. We literally had a wood fire pizza oven.
Bro, this just reminds me of the streets of Cairo. Someone's walking around with a cart.
And literally, I was like,
Brother Bear.
and cooking pizza on the side of the road.
That's driving up on the curb, just stopping the car, picking up
There was
pizza.
smoke
Window down.
coming out from like miles away because we were just cooking pizza on the side of the road. Anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks, got the hang of it, and I was like, okay, I can throw the pizza night. That night was so much fun. We killed it. We produced a lot of pizza. Everything went smoothly. DJ was there. So much fun. Everyone had a good time. And then someone saw that video that we had posted, because we got Megaphone Media. Shout out Megaphone Media. If you ever need any media needs, get them to record.
Is that
your videos.
Regan Rona?
That's
and
Regan
James
Rona.
Latouf?
Mr. Regan
Regan
Rona.
Rona.
And
Yep.
James Latouf.
Yep. And James Latouf.
James Latouf,
Yeah,
yeah.
They do some great things. So
Killing it.
they used to do our videos for our social media for the cafe.
Oh,
And
it was his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, James.
HBD. And basically, they recorded that video. It was awesome. Got a lot of views, and a couple of people reached out. One person said, "Hey, got a 30th coming up. I'm just wondering if you do any catering." So,
Oh,
yeah, man.
hectic.
Yeah. So we landed a big job from that. I went out, sussed out their house. It was a little apartment, I think, in the Castle Hill area. Sussed out the apartment. I was like, "Yep, sure." I just like confident,
From,
like,
never making a pizza before to
to agreeing to cater
I
for
do
a
this all the
30th.
time.
That's mad.
Mate, I'm telling you. I was like, yeah, sweet. We've done this all the time. I can do this for you, no problem. Fast forward to the event, and basically went down and ended up getting two of my friends to help me out. So my cousin, two of my good mates, set up the pizza oven, and this thing was like 250 kilos. So we're trying to carry this big metal wood fire pizza oven up the stairs. I'm like, all right, stay cool, boys. We've got to act like we're professional. We've done this before. Set up the trestle tables, got all the ingredients out, whatever it is. Everyone's like, hey, the pizza guys are here. I was like, yeah, what's up, guys? Inside, I'm just like, okay, matey, just keep coming. Just make sure you set everything up nicely, act professional. We're all dressed in black.
like
I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing. We set everything up, and I had forgotten fire lighters. So
fire starters.
fire starters. I
Oh,
forgot fire
shit.
starters. So
That's
I'm sitting
important.
there, and I couldn't get the freaking fire going for the pizza oven. So basically,
He
what you
goes
do is
outside, he gets rocks.
you stack logs together, put the fire lighters underneath, heat it up, and then slide the wood fire into the back of the
okay,
oven.
okay.
But I couldn't get the freaking fire going, so I'm sitting there panicking. I'm like to my cousin, listen, bro, just like, give me some paper, let me get this thing going. Because people are starting, no, they're not sus, but in my head, I'm exalting the
Yeah.
problem. I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
'cause
yeah.
you're sweating
If anyone
profusely?
looks in your direction, you're like, they're
Yeah.
fucking starving.
Yeah,
Where's the
yeah,
pizza?
yeah.
Where's the pizza?
So I just said, there's a Bunnings up the road. And I was like to my mate, and he's his leg was completely cooked, but he sprinted there. He's like, I'll go get him. So I was like, okay, run to Bunnings. He started running to Bunnings. He came back in about literally 5 minutes. I was like, oh, thank you. Anyway, then the lighter's not working. And I'm like, oh, fuck, this is a failure. What's going on? And I'm trying to light while he's gone getting the highlighters, I'm trying to light paper just to get it going. And it's just fizzling out. And I'm like, anyway, finally get it going.
And this takes a while to start up after you do that, right?
Yeah, but all the ingredients are set up. And then we finally get the fire going. The fire starts to go. And I'm like, all right, perfect. Then after 10 minutes, the fire went out. And I'm like, why is the fire going out?
Oh, bro.
And I realized I grabbed damp wood. And it wasn't, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on?
Did you have dry wood?
I had dry wood. So I had to remove that wood. Okay, finally, the fire starts going. Then we get a dough roller. And at the event at my cafe, a good friend of mine, Nick, was helping me out. He's a gun on the dough machine. He was rolling out the pizza. You put it in the top, wait for the dough to fall to the bottom, put it in a couple of times, spread it out with your hands, flour.
That's mad. So you guys are doing the
We're doing it
fucking
full
dough.
proper.
Yeah.
The pizza turned out amazing, but just in the process to getting the pizzas out, it was an absolute nightmare. Anyway, the pin that holds the roller for the dough roller started falling out, and I'm trying to put it in, and I've never made pizza on the dough roller before. My mate was doing it for me at the last time, and I'm trying to do it, and it keeps, if you've ever used the dough roller before, it chews up the dough, and it just kept splitting. And I'm panicking. I'm to my cousin.
Is that similar to when you put the pasta through a
Correct.
thing?
Very similar,
Okay,
except it drops out, and then you drop it through.
You go again.
You go again to get it really thin.
And you change the setting.
Change the setting.
Yeah, nice.
But the pin kept falling out, and for literally 25 minutes, I'm like,
People are going to notice
people started to be like,
how long into it was this?
This was
was this half an hour into it, an hour?
I gave myself an hour early, so I just made sure we got there. If we ran into any of these problems, and we did, and luckily, finally the pizza starts coming out sweet. We got it. Put in the pizza on, and I'm to my cousin, because this is the cousin, shout out Mick. He helped me on the burger night when things weren't going on, and he to be honest, I buckled, and he just came in. He's like, "Get out of the way, bro." Let me start doing it. And he starts putting them together, and man, we finally got the pizzas out. After about half an hour, the pizzas were cranking. People were coming up, going, "Mate, this is the best pizza ever."
Nice.
These are delicious.
No way,
because
that's
the pizza
hectic.
was excellent, bro.
Yeah.
I put a lot of prosciutto, parmigiano, rocca, extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Proper San Marzano
Bro,
tomato.
but that's good
So
because
nice.
straight out, just to have the ball, a lot of people, probably including myself, you haven't done things like that before. A lot of people would just bitch out and be like, hey, thanks for inquiring.
They call it
but
balls,
we don't
but more like a lack
I'm
of brains,
busy.
to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
But also probably just out of sheer necessity too. You're like, I'm going to do this because I need it.
Yeah.
Because I needed I needed to do well. I needed to survive.
Yeah.
Honestly, my cousin Oliver is very much like that. I've always been the type that's very much an overthinker. I won't even I won't attempt something because I'm like, I can see a problem 5 problems away. I won't, even for example, I know obviously I've got an interest in real estate, but I always told myself, no, a service business isn't type of business I want to run. Whereas that's just a fucking problem for later. If you're running a successful service business, that's a win in itself. But, someone obviously like what you did, and my cousin Oliver, for example, he's always been the type that goes, bro, I'm doing this and I'm just going to work it out.
What's the worst that can happen?
It out. Even with the gym, bro, at the end of the day, he's wanted to do that for a little while, but he's just he's the type of guy where he's not sitting there planning out how am I going to do demo, how am I going to get approval, how am I going to get the rent. He's this type of guy that goes, as long as I can get a look in, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
That's that optimistic trait, though.
Yeah,
highly optimistic.
He doesn't. It's almost like, and when you meet people, especially obviously I come from a sales background. You notice that there's distinctly not 2 types. Obviously, there's it's on a spectrum, but you notice the people that they see things through a lens of risk, and you notice the people that tend to see things through a lens of opportunity.
Yeah.
And the people that obviously see things through that risk averse lens go, oh, this could happen, or what happens about this, or if people don't like it, or what if I can't do it? Whereas the people opportunistic lens almost ignore to a certain extent. They ignore the risks and they ignore the fears, and they go, oh, but what if it works?
What if it works?
Looking
at that
but
positive
what
side
if
of
I
things.
fly? Well, that thing.
Yeah. There's no pessimism in that whole conversation. It's optimistic. This will work, and if it doesn't, well, okay, we'll figure it out.
Sometimes it's blind optimism.
Blind optimism, yeah.
But they fucking do it half the time.
But like what you're saying before about just jumping in and doing it, Sir Richard Branson's quote, if you've been given an opportunity, take it and figure out the rest later.
Yeah.
Right? So just jumping in, do whatever. Because again, you have to learn on the run.
Yeah.
And failure is what happens on the run.
A lot of these
to
principles,
get better and better and better.
A lot of these principles are biblical principles, honestly. If you've never read the Bible, open it up. I guarantee you will get a lot out of it. It'll touch your heart because It talks about living by faith, not by sight. And what that means essentially
true.
is not, don't pay attention to the external. Take that risk, okay? Because something positive is going to come out of that. You're going to, embrace, you're going to come, Christ suffered. Jesus suffered. You're going to go through suffering. You're going to go through, things that test and challenge you. But if you continue to persist and walk and walk and walk and take these small steps of faith, eventually you're going to be making bounds of faith. Mate, I've taken a lot of risk. I traveled by myself when I was 18. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know who I was meeting. And I take these risks and I've never looked back. All the risks that have taken, I've either failed and learned something from it. Hence, it wasn't a failure. It was a lesson and it was a blessing. And you're able to take these things. So I encourage you, if you're out there and there's even a small hurdle in front of you, try and overcome it. Try and take that step. Try and take that leap of faith, and I guarantee you something will positive come from it. Don't sit there. The worst thing you can do is we're gonna get to 50, 60, 70, 80 years old and be like, you know what, man, I never once took a risk. I never once decided to step outside of my comfort zone. Go and do it. Something great will come of it. I guarantee you.
And people need to at least be willing to try.
100%.
Again, coming back to just trying it, because even if you're not good at it, the imposter syndrome, right?
That's it.
Jordan Peterson said this. He said that everybody has imposter syndrome when they start.
Oh.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, no matter who you are. But
He's
from
the
there, you start to build the skills in that area. And you start to get better and better and better. But you just have to keep going with it. Okay? Not even worry about the goal at the end of the day. Okay? Worry about day by day. How are you getting better? Okay, I never used to be able to do that. But now look at me now. And look at us now in our 4th episode. I literally feel the most comfortable in this episode than when we did before.
Yeah, I know. And
right?
I think it's partly because we've got the mics in
And
our
I got
hands,
no
no
socks
laptops. Zoom in on that. Zoom in on the toe.
But you know what I mean? Like, each time you climb that mountain, you can get better and the skills get better.
And the people around you make a big difference in what you're saying around like being able to take that faith, right? But like even I think back to when my first job out of, after leaving uni, or getting kicked out of uni and then getting into agency recruitment, I remember when I was working for my director, Stella, she was like she was the type, she would throw you in the deep end and she's like,
sink or
swim.
Yeah,
No, not sink or swim, fucking swim.
You better
swim or fucking choke on the water.
Yeah.
And like for example, we'd get in, and so the whole job in recruitment is obviously it's sales, so find the jobs, find the people that are advertising their jobs and speak to them and get them to help you recruit their job. And that's how you get paid. You get a percentage fee of their salary. So for example, you're recruiting a $100,000 job. If the fee is 15%, it's a $15,000 fee that the company makes, right? So what that starts with is if you haven't got any contacts, and I was fucking 21 at the time, you've got to go and look on Seek and see who's advertising jobs. Sometimes there's numbers, sometimes there's not. Sometimes you call through switchboard. She sat me down. She's like, you are going to call these CFOs, these 45-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-old people who are earning 300 grand a year, and you're going to speak to them, and you're not going to be scared, and you're going to say this exact word talk track, and here is how you disarm them. Here are all the things that they're going to say in response to you as to why they don't want to speak to you, and you're going to preempt those. You know what I mean? And that
How did you feel?
I was fucked up, man. I'm talking like major anxiety. She'd be sitting there. She'd have her headphones on, and I'm on the call like proper old school. I'm speaking on the call. For example, I'd find a CFO's number somehow. I'd call them. Hi, it's John Paul calling from Rio Group. I'm an accounting finance recruiter. I understand you probably have your own relationships with recruiters. I understand you probably have an internal process, and it was disarm.
I know you don't need me.
Exactly.
I know you don't need me.
Disarm, and then
Went for the kill.
Pause. And it was
is
just like. And being thrown in the deep end like that, like I'll be frank, I would not have done any of that if it wasn't for her. So the people around you, when it comes to those fears that you have that push you, the fact that you just pulled the trigger on the potty, and we're like, fuck, we're here now. It's too deep. We're in too deep almost. Those people around you are really important because they can show you that, hey, check, you did it. You did it. You got that job, and you got a meeting with the CFO. You fucking 21-year-old little guy, who has stubble on his mustache. You were able to get a meeting, and so you can do it. Don't tell me you can't do it. Just so it's so important to have the people around you that know what you're capable of, and they truly believe in you, and they can push you, because sometimes you're not going to give yourself the push.
They see something in you to be able to move forward.
Exactly. They see something in you.
Yeah, but 100%, and when you're looking at those people that are around you, and even looking at that willingness to even want to take on that information to be pushed, you need to be willing as well. You have to be willing as well, because in the fitness industry, the 5 months is the lifespan of a PT.
Oh, really?
5 months.
5 months.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Fuck, all that study for like a year or 6 months or whatever, and
Yeah,
then
5
wow.
months, yeah. And that comes down to people not being willing to go out and face their fears, right?
Yep.
A lot of them are sales, a lot of them are communicating with people, conversating with people, and going in the gym and actually having real conversations. And this could be back down to people that are quite young as well. But yeah, like, you need to be willing to put yourself out there. You need to be willing to fail. You need to be willing to learn. And I think, like you said, if you have those people around you that are willing to push you in those directions, hold your hand potentially, okay, help you through it, that's going to help you on the back end, definitely. And that's what I was the same case for when I started as a PT. I was told to go get preferred partners, and I was like, what do I say? Just go and ask them to do work together. And I was walking out of the gym like, okay, like, because this was in Castle Hill. And I had to go to the mall and just talk to anybody and everybody for like an hour.
Do you have like a stand?
No, you just go out with your cards and you just talk to the different
Fuck, bro,
businesses.
that's baptism
Yeah.
by
That's
fire.
crazy.
Yeah. But the thing was, like, I didn't know what to do. So sink or swim, I was like, okay, well, I'm either gonna go back with nothing or I'm gonna actually give it a crack. And years later, when we had the other business, I did that. I went down to Victoria Road in Castle Hill, and I just went door to door and just asked people to train and sign up. And then I got people, and that was on the back of me doing it for the first time,
Yeah.
and taking action, having confidence. So when I did it the second time around, which was about 4 or 5 years later, I would do it straight up. I was like, yep, let's
Yeah,
go.
and you're just like in
Easy,
your head, you have
let's go.
you can't hurt me mentality. Look what
Yeah.
I've gone fucking, as in you were saying in your head, I've basically gone door to door.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and like when you build that resilience so early on, and like I mean I did something similar. Like, I don't know if did I tell you guys that I was doing that? The people in Martin Place stopping people and.
No,
Did I ever
you
tell you
didn't
guys
say
that
that.
story? Bro, so I think this was actually when I got booted from uni. I was like, look at jobs or whatever. So I applied for this job. It's with this company called VMG Global. Anyway, so I applied for the job. They're like, oh, you can make all this money and da da da. And I didn't really care about money. For me, it was about experience at the time. Like genuinely, I didn't give a shit about money. And you'll hear like even an example of that. So anyway, I go into this office. And it's one of those companies where we represent all these great companies like Médecins des Frontières, Canteen, and you'd stand in Martin Place, not with an iPad, but with an actual stand, and you try and bring people in. There's annoying people that
Hate
everyone
them.
hates.
Bro, we used to do Woolworths.
Do not say you hate those people,
Outside
because those
Woolworths.
people have the hardest jobs on the
Yeah.
I
planet.
know. Well, I'll get out of my face.
Anyway, yeah.
But then they make you feel bad. They're like, this person is dying in Africa. Come help. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I know.
All right, yeah, look,
it's
I'm
exactly yeah. But like, and so I went into this office, and they're like getting us out in the first day. You had to get your own ABM, by the way. These scumbags, they wouldn't pay you one. They would not. It's commission only. Anyway, so you'd go into the office. I remember the guy who ran the company was like, on the first day, he's like trying to G us up, talk about your goals, talk about what you want to do, and he's like, I think he was Irish or Scott. I think it was a Scottish guy, and he's like, here's what I want. I want a Range Rover. I'm getting a Range Rover. Like this. That's what I want to do. What do you want to do? And in my head, I'm like, relax, bro. Anyway, it's just that type of an environment. So anyway, I went out. I remember this was my first week. I think it was the second or third day. I think the first day I maybe made one sale or something, or someone had signed up. Third day they sent me out. I went over in my Aquila black shoes, a white shirt from Van Heusen, untucked in the back. I got on the bus. They sent me to Fairlight. That's near Manly, by the way. Yeah. So I live in Greystone, so that's a long way. I was carrying a fucking signboard, like one of the ones the V shape, carrying it like that on my own. I didn't have anyone with me. Usually you have someone else with you, moral support, whatever. I went out there. I put my stand outside this Fairlight shopping centre, and I'd just be trying to talk to people, and people just like they get away from me. Get away from me. Occasionally, I'd have I remember this old lady stopped. She was talking to me for a good half hour. I'm like, yes, okay,
Someone.
Like, we're getting someone here. We're getting someone. And at the end, she left, and she went off. And I just remember, bro, I was so defeated. I was there for 7 hours, nothing, not one sale. And I remember getting on that bus home. And I went home and I was crying. I was like, bro, this is heavy. Like
Terrible,
that was, and when I look back on those experiences, I think to myself, those experiences as a result of what I consider to be a failure, getting booted out of uni or whatever, those are the things that really built that
They shaped you.
thick skin, and that's those experiences, like what you're talking about, what you were doing, Sean, and obviously what I did and what Maddie did and what have you, and what everyone else is doing, is that those things are what end up making you what you are. So embrace them.
Yeah.
Don't feel like necessarily because they're not typical or they're not traditional, in the sense of in the true spirit of Dropouts.
Yeah.
Just
But
'cause they're non-traditional, that they're not going to,
But even
not
like
go
when
on
you're
to-
going into doing something different, look back at where you were successful, right? Or even going back to those failures and how you came out of that.
That's it.
And take that upon yourself to go, okay, well that did happen, but look where I am now.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next thing that I'm going towards, okay, it's going to be okay. Because I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to learn the skill, and I'm going to be better off as I go through.
And not just that,
in the
something
future.
practical. I think that everyone can employ, and I think that I've employed, and maybe you boys have in the past, is what's something that you've been fearful of in the past that you ended up overcoming, that you ended up, beating, that you probably convoluted this or exalted this problem in your head way more than it should have been. You ended up overcoming it. It wasn't half as bad as you thought, and you ended up coming out on the other side just fine.
Yeah.
So
That's
Let
the
us know.
evidence. That's the evidence that
Yeah, and
you've
let
done
us
it.
we're keen to and like Matty said before, let us know in the comments. No, just
Yeah.
ping us a DM, whatever.
Yeah.
Because we want to start sharing what others are thinking. All
Yeah.
5 of you.
And even back to us, we're going for 35 podcasts.
that's it.
Right,
35
this year, right? And again, we've had the fair. We fair it every session we come in, but we do it anyway. And we're
Technically, if we quit now, we're in the top 10% of all podcasts.
All right, this is
coming
our
for the
podcast.
top, baby.
You're right.
Yeah.
Matty's feeling. I gotta go to work.
Gotta go to work.
Wrap us up, Matty.
Yeah,
Guys,
wrap us up.
Thank you for joining us for episode 4 of Fear and Failure.
95%, baby.
Let's go. We'll catch you on next
We
week's
don't know what
episode.
next week's about, but we'll tell you
Yeah,
soon.
it'll come.
Well, it'll come. We're coming. We're coming for the top, baby.
Number 5 coming up soon, baby.
Thank you so much,
Love
guys.
you all.
Having us.
Let's
Yalla,
go.
bye, bye.
Woo!